Viewers aren't just annoyed, they're fed up and they're saying it out loud. The loudest daytime show in America finally met someone who hits back harder than it hits. Here's the headline everyone's passing around right now. After a week of smug shots and snide asides, The View finds itself staring down a monster lawsuit from Karoline Leavitt. Yes, the new Trump White
Democrats in the media are now unloading all their nasty attacks on rising Trump White House star and new
House press secretary, and the number attached to it is so big it reads like a typo. $800 million. That's not a PR skirmish. That's an extinction-level event if it lands, and it's already turned the show's backstage confidence into full-blown damage control. Click confirmed? Good. Because if you thought...
I think she's probably been put in there because, according to Donald Trump, she's a 10. You know that's what it is.
I want to be clear, though. It's not her first job. It was her first press briefing. She worked in the previous Trump administration.
Thought the on-air jabs were spicy. The off-air panic is scorching. There are reports of pleading phone calls, nervous executives, and sponsors inhaling through their teeth. We're going to walk through exactly what was said on camera that triggered this, why Leavitt's counterpunch isn't just symbolic but financially lethal, and the very real scenario in which ABC decides the easiest way to stop the bleeding is to cauterize the wound. Stay with me, because in about 30 seconds you'll hear the one line that flipped the public sentiment.
Voters do not agree with these despicable women on The View. They are wildly out of touch with the vast majority of Americans, and frankly, they should seek immediate help because voters are going to re-elect President Trump back to the White House very soon because voters see these trials that are being brought forward against President Trump for what they are. They are sham show trials. They are election interference in an attempt to imprison President Trump. And the irony in all of this is that Joe Biden and the Democrats and these ladies on The View constantly say President Trump is the alleged threat to democracy, when in fact they themselves...
One legal angle that sent attorneys into a weekend sprint, and the one behind-the-scenes outreach that proves the show knows it overplayed its hand. Let's start where the cameras were rolling, because this is where the fuse was lit. The View did what it does when a young conservative woman walks onto the national stage with momentum. It tried to turn her rise into a punchline. The tone wasn't debate, it was dismissal. One co-host leaned on the oldest, laziest trope in cable TV commentary, reducing achievement to looks, floating the idea that Leavitt's proximity to power must be cosmetic rather than earned. It's the kind of line that gets a cheap laugh in the room and a headache everywhere else, because the subtext is obvious. Your wins don't count if we don't like who you work for. Another co-host escalated with a lecture about wokeness, arguing that if not for the social movements they champion, Leavitt wouldn't even have a seat at the table, that her presence is essentially an IOU to the ideology the show sells. Then came the privilege framing, subtle enough to wear a polite smile, sharp enough to draw blood. It all landed with the same message: your competence is suspect, your legitimacy rented, and your success somehow an insult to the people who demanded you be allowed to succeed. Expectation: we uplift women. Reality: we uplift women who agree with us. Everyone else gets a scolding, then a smear. Now, here's the part that made the internet snap to attention. Leavitt didn't absorb it, she answered it. Not with an eye roll, not with a subtweet, but with a lawyer. She went straight for the pressure point that TV personalities fear more than bad ratings: discovery. $800 million doesn't just threaten a balance sheet. It threatens to yank emails, memos, and production notes into daylight. That number says, I'm not here to play PR chess. I'm here to make the board matter. And the claim isn't foggy. It uses big, heavy words: defamation, slander, malicious intent, attached to very specific televised moments. The implication is brutal in its simplicity. You didn't just criticize me. You knowingly tried to damage me. And if that lands, it won't be just a bad headline for a day. It becomes a case study in every newsroom's risk meeting for the next decade. Before we go deeper on the legal blast crater, rewind 10 seconds and clock the on-air contradiction that fueled the backlash. The same panel that sells itself as the cheering section for women in public life decided the appropriate welcome for a new female press secretary was to belittle, psychoanalyze, and trivialize. And the audience heard it. The comment sections didn't mince words. You don't get to set the rules of fairness and then call timeout when someone you dislike wins under those rules. People clipped the segment next to Leavitt's own words about what she believes: strong borders, strong military, America first economics, and her warning about cultural ideologies marching through schools, universities, tech, and legacy media. And you could feel the crowd decide, in real time, that they'd rather argue with someone they think is wrong than watch someone be told she isn't allowed to be right. That's the pivot. That's where curiosity turned into sympathy. Now we put the strongest card on the table: the lawsuit. The show can absorb outrage. It's built for that. What it cannot absorb is a legal avalanche that threatens to sweep up its biggest names by signature. $800 million is not just a stunt figure. It's a statement of damages across reputation, career, and future earnings, multiplied by the reach of a program that dominates daytime conversation. And the specificity matters. You can criticize policy all day long. You cannot assert damaging motives and personal denigrations as if they were established fact without proving you did the homework first. The legal burden flips the swagger. You can see why, according to reports, the panic meetings aren't about booking better guests. They're about keeping the ad sales team from dialing back inventory. If sponsors start asking, "What's our exposure if this sticks?" the people upstairs move fast. Here's where the story gets almost cinematic. Off camera, the tone reportedly changes from mocking to conciliatory. Think about that for a second. The same voices that treated Leavitt like a meme on air are, behind the curtain, urging a conversation, feeling out settlement vibes, searching for off-ramps. If that's accurate, it's the most honest chapter of the whole saga because it shows you who actually feels the risk. You don't reach for private back channels when you're sure you're right. You do it when your lawyers highlight sentences in yellow and say, "This one will cost you time and money." In other words, the public swagger was free. The private comm is expensive. Meanwhile, ABC is stuck playing firefighter with a gas can. The network knows this show is both a ratings engine and an advertiser magnet, and that makes it a liability the second courtroom words enter the chat. It doesn't take many nervous emails from big brands to trigger the question no one on set once asked: is the show worth the headache? The honest answer is that question has hovered for years. You could feel it in previous controversies, suspensions, and apologies. The audience tolerates drama when it smells like authenticity. It rejects drama that smells like cruelty dressed up as courage. The latest round tripped that wire. Expectation: daytime TV is a safe outrage dispenser. Reality: daytime TV can become a cost center overnight if the outrage is aimed like a weapon instead of fired like a flare. Let's step back to the origin of this clash, because Leavitt's style is part of why the moment exploded. She's unapologetic in a way that confuses TV veterans who survive on caveats. When she says the speech that framed half the country as dangerous was divisive, she says it without the usual hedges. When she talks about border strength, military posture, or turbocharging the American economy rather than playing global patron, she doesn't decorate the point with academic jargon. She's blunt. And when she argues that what she calls cultural Marxism has crept through classrooms, campuses, Hollywood, big tech, and the media that surrounds them, she doesn't deliver it like a thesis. She delivers it like a warning. That style doesn't always convert opponents, but it does make enemies overreach. They swing too wide. They say the quiet part loud. They make the mistake The View just made: trading persuasion for personal shots. That's when the audience leans in and says, "Okay, but is she wrong? Or are you just mad she exists?" Public reaction moved quickly because hypocrisy travels fast. One viral comment captured the mood: "We're told to support women until the woman has an R by her name, then it's open season." Another pointed out the comic irony of mocking someone for supposedly benefiting from her appearance while simultaneously defending a worldview that often reduces hiring to surface categories. And as that conversation spiraled, Leavitt's decision to file wasn't seen as thin-skinned. It was framed as overdue accountability. People are tired of the two-track rules. One set that shields progressive voices from harsh framing and another that treats conservative women like piñatas. You can dislike a person's politics and still recognize a hit job when you see it. In fact, that's the point. If you only defend fairness for people you agree with, you're not defending fairness. You're defending your friends to let's talk stakes, not vibes. For The View's marquee personalities, This is now personal exposure. Defamation doesn't always stop at the corporate wall. Attorneys will map exactly who said what, who prepped the segment, who approved the lines, who went off script, and what the intent can be inferred to be from internal communications. That's where emails become kryptonite.